Good morning. Welcome back. I'm so happy to see everybody. Today is July, and in July we're going to talk about the power of understanding. So first we're going to start off with our offertory blessing. So you can hold your money or a heart, or you can even just hold your hands together and say the prayer together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more. It's just like a magic penny, hold on tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many, they'll roll all over the floor. Plop. Love is something if you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something if you give it away, you end up having more and more and more and more and more. Alright, so we like to talk about how we can give of time, talent, and treasure. So even if you don't have any money to give, you can still find some way to be in a giving heart. You can give of your time, and sometimes that might just be spending time with someone, or sometimes it is spending time doing specific things. You can also give of maybe your old clothes or your old toys. You can donate them, or sometimes just lending a helping hand to someone in need, or just lending a helping hand for someone that maybe can't open the door themselves and you open the door for them. So there's lots of ways to give. And then we also do our gratitude. So I am grateful for this beautiful weather. It's sunny and it's beautiful. It is a little hot out here, but it is beautiful. What are you grateful for? That's so awesome. So, again, today we're going to talk about understanding. And so the power of the month for July is understanding. And understanding, sometimes that's kind of hard to do, right? So we're going to take our deep breath. And we're going to do our sacred prayer today. We understand that God is all good, everywhere present, and that we are each a unique expression of God. Just breathe that in. We affirm that we have a gift that only we can give to the world, and that is based in love and is for the highest good of each of us. We know that as we connect to the power of God with us, we bless the world in amazing ways. Amen. So we each have a talent that we can share, and some of us may have found that already and some may not. Some people may be amazing singers, some may be amazing at art, others are really good with numbers. Maybe you're good with schoolwork or sports. Everyone has a talent. We just have to find it. And once we find it, we have to share it. So now we're going to move into our lesson. And today's book is called Miss Murphy's Marvelous Mansion. Miss Murphy's Marvelous Mansion by Emma Perry Roberts, illustrated by Robert Rogalski. Miss Murphy lived on a very fine street, in a very fine neighborhood, in a very fine town. She was a very fine person. When Miss Murphy took her dog Pickles for a walk, she would greet everyone with a smile and say, "Have a very fine day." The neighbors always watched with amazement when Miss Murphy returned from her walk and entered the house. It looked so small they wondered how she could move around once she got inside. They did not like the odd little house. In fact, they tried to pretend it wasn't there at all. One very fine day when Miss Murphy left her house, she found the neighbors gathered around a large billboard. Chattering with excitement, they each offered ideas how to make their neighborhood even more beautiful. "Let's put up a sign, a welcome sign," said Miss Brown. "An elegant lamp post on every corner," added Miss Black. "Let's add trees and flowers along the sidewalks," said Miss Green, "and park benches with a fountain in the circle." "We must include magnificent statue," declared Mr. Gold. "What very fine ideas," observed Miss Murphy with a cheerful smile. As soon as she walked away, the neighbors began complaining about Miss Murphy's peculiar little house. "Her house is really ugly," muttered Miss Black. "It's barely bigger than a cracker box," said Mr. Gold. "We certainly won't win this very finest neighborhood contest with that awful little house on our street," shouted Mr. Brown. "It should be torn down." When Miss Murphy returned from her walk, Mr. Gold called out to her, "We have an important matter to discuss with you. It's about the very finest neighborhood contest." "And about your house," said Miss White. "You see, we think it's not, well, we just think that—" "What she's trying to say," interrupted Mr. Brown, "is that your house doesn't belong on our very fine street." "Your dreadful little house simply has to go," they all shouted at once. "Oh my," said Miss Murphy, looking up at her neighbors with surprise. "You must all come inside and see for yourself that my house is very fine indeed. I insist that you join me tomorrow for lunch." The neighbors looked at one another in astonishment and began to whisper among themselves. Finally, Mr. Gold announced, "We have decided to accept your invitation." The next day, when Miss Murphy's neighbors stepped through her peculiar little door, they were flabbergasted. "Your house appears to be quite roomy," gasped Mr. Brown. I do love the open spaces," replied Miss Murphy. "Just look at all these doors," exclaimed Miss White. "With more surprise behind each one," said Mr. Murphy, with a satisfied smile. "Your home is so full of light," said Miss Black. "And doesn't that make it bright and cheerful?" replied Miss Murphy. "This is astonishing," declared Miss Green. "You have wonderful plants and flowers everywhere." "Why, of course," said Miss Murphy. "They add such beauty and color." With ongoing exclamations of amazement, the guests followed Miss Murphy from one magical room to another. At last they came to her extraordinary kitchen, where a very elegant lunch was being prepared. Miss Murphy's neighbors chatted happily as they ate mouth-watering meal. The delicacies included cheddar and mushroom quiche, baked yams with honey glaze, and wild green salad with pine nuts. Next, the guests enjoyed Miss Murphy's lively entertainment as they feasted upon strawberry rhubarb pie a la mode. The meal was topped off with a cup of homemade cinnamon tea. When it came time to leave, Miss Murphy thanked her neighbors for coming and invited them to return another day. As they walked away, Miss White said, "Oh, on the inside, her house is so much different than I expected." The others nodded their heads in agreement. "When we looked only at the outside," declared Miss Brown, "we couldn't appreciate the inside." But what about the very finest neighborhood contest? Questioned Mr. Gold. It seems to me that we already have the very finest neighborhood, interrupted Mr. Brown. And the very finest neighbors, the others agreed, as they waved goodbye to Miss Murphy. It's a very fine day indeed, mused Miss Murphy, when we learn that beauty on the inside matters more than beauty on the outside. She turned with a smile and entered her very fine house, closing the little door behind her. The end. Miss Murphy's marvelous mansion, we got to see how sometimes things on the inside look much different than things on the outside. And what else did we learn? That's right, we learned not to judge things from the outside. Can you think of some other things that are like that? Where maybe what you see on the outside gives you one impression and you make a judgment before you actually get to know what's on the inside? Sometimes that goes for people, right? Sometimes you meet new people or you see a new person in your class and it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk to them. But they might be the most wonderful person you ever meet. So we have to remember that it's what's on inside that counts. And sometimes that takes us taking a step back and thinking about what really matters. So the neighbors in the story thought that the way the house looked on the outside and whether or not they were part of the finest neighborhood really mattered. And they wanted this award, right? Sometimes we want things, material things. And they already had the finest neighborhood with the finest neighbors. They just needed to become aware of that. So for our craft today, I'm just going to take a piece of white paper. And it's just a blank white paper, and I'm going to fold it in four. And I'm going to draw a picture of a house that might not look so fabulous on the outside, but then we're going to open it up and we're going to create our own Miss Murphy mansion. And your house can look however you'd like. Everyone's will look different because we're all very different. And so we might have different ideas. And that's okay. That's what makes life interesting. If we all had the same ideas and did the exact same thing and dressed the exact same way, life wouldn't be very interesting. And let's finish this off. And there's my front to my mansion. And then we're going to open it up and you can draw whatever you'd like inside your mansion. My favorite part of this mansion was how she had trees inside. And she basically had like a jungle inside, remember? And the kitchen was so huge. But I'm going to draw the trees and some birds. And maybe even some butterflies in my house. So, on the outside, my house looks so tiny, but on the inside, it's got trees and butterflies and birds. So we know it's a big house, right? And you can't tell from the outside what's on the inside. So what kind of house are you going to draw today? Well, thank you for joining me today. And let's say our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and we are grateful. Amen.